Cryptocurrency, even the word sparks emotions in people immediately. Some think it's rat poison, a scam, the biggest con ever seen in history. Others are true believers. Many think it's actually going to be the future of money itself. What is for certain is 5 or 10 years ago, when most of us first heard the word, we just ignored it. Surely this is nonsense. And yet now, people are talking about it, and in a big way. Is it any surprise? Not only have there been some huge financial returns made on it, but also it's the widespread adoption of cryptocurrency that I find so fascinating. Look at America. Look at the major firms like Apple, Tesla. They're all beginning to accept crypto. I was in Miami last year. I met the mayor of Miami, Suarez. He wants Miami to become the first all-crypto city. Yep, you go to Starbucks, you tap with a card, and you pay with your fraction of Bitcoin, Ethereum, or whatever else it is. One thing is for certain, there's a huge level of ignorance out there. We've been told again and again by the Bank of England, financial authorities, don't go anywhere near this investment. It's dangerous. You could lose your money. If you read the Financial Times, well, they're not interested in cryptocurrency at all. They've kind of written it off. So what we are trying to do is to help you understand what cryptocurrency is, how it's being adopted, what it offers to you as an investor, potentially even in terms of annual returns. And to do that, I'm joined by Sam Volkering, somebody who spent over 10 years of his life not only studying cryptocurrencies, but also, I think, doing quite well out of it too. Well, like it or not, cryptocurrencies, digital currencies, are going to affect every single one of us. And I'm leaning on Sam Volkering and his expertise. And today, he's going to have a big reveal for you. He's going to tell you something you didn't know. Please listen in. Sam, since the dawn of time, anything new that comes along in the financial world is automatically written off by those in the established status quo. And this is certainly the case with cryptocurrencies. Whilst it's got its adherents, there are many in the establishment that have tried to write it off. We've had people from the Bank of England saying that it could become worthless. The governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, saying it had no intrinsic value. All of which made me wonder, well, why does the paper in my pocket that says £10 on it have any intrinsic value? But that's been the hit, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And every attempt made to discourage people from investing or indeed using cryptocurrency. How do you fight back against an establishment that says that and tries its best to dissuade people?
The most important thing is to watch what they do, not what they say. Yeah, you're right. You know, the Bank of England and the government have historically been very anti-crypto, very anti-Bitcoin, very much against what is building in front of their very eyes. But if you actually look at what they're doing, so just recently the Financial Conduct Authority posted a job ad for a new position, the head of digital assets, which is focusing on cryptocurrency. And you look at even just recently what the government's decided to announce that they want the UK to be a leader in crypto assets and digital
This was a big
technologies.
surprise, wasn't it?
It was.
Or not?
It was. Well, yes and no. I mean, so there's a lot of things happening around this. Is they see that there's a potential for innovation and economic, contribution to the country and GDP growth, a whole bunch of issues. But at the same time, they're also looking on the back end of how can we just bring this in line with the current system? How can we take this under our wing and under our control? So I think it's really important that people try and block out the noise of what they hear and what the mainstream media covers about this and really look at what they're doing. And if you look at the way the Bank of England and the government are actually moving, it's quite clear that they see that they need to have a role in crypto assets and digital currencies.
Sam, how many people, despite being told don't go anywhere near it, how many people in the UK have bought and sold crypto coins?
Well, I love this figure because it's around 20%. So about a
big number.
It's a huge number, and it's very much saying that the people of this country recognize that something is happening and they want to have a part in it. So regardless of what the government has been saying, or regardless of what they've been seeing in the media, rat poison and worthless going to zero, people are still actively trying to figure out about it and getting involved with it.
And for the younger generation, that figure will be a lot more than 20%. I mean, is this the future of money?
Yes, I genuinely believe it is. I think it's going to exist in two systems. I think what's ultimately building up here is two parallel systems, a decentralized system, which is what we're seeing with crypto assets and cryptocurrency, and a government-controlled fiat system. And how that's building now and what they're doing in terms of moving into that space, it's very much becoming this two pathways.
So there's a range here, isn't there? From could be worthless to Bitcoin's going to 500,000 or it's going to 1 million. I mean, massive range of predictions out there. You've got form on this. You've had a very good decade having looked at this space. Putting you on the spot, what is coming next?
Well, so for example, you mentioned 500,000. We know the Winklevoss twins, former Facebook, now co-founded the Gemini exchange, big crypto exchange. They predicted $500,000. I actually think it'll go higher than that long term. I think longer term we're looking. Yeah, I do. I think we're looking at well over $1 million plus long term, and that's really because of what's coming and what's coming now and what's coming down the track. I think short term, like within the next 18 months or so, we're going to start to just see this adoption go bonkers. We're going to start to see major corporations really get their hooks into this. I think we'll see, the likes of Apple and Amazon really starting to integrate these kinds of payments and systems within their own platforms. So I think that's a really big thing that we're going to see. I think the adoption curve, we've seen traditionally in the past, things like the internet, and we've seen adoption curves for like the internet. What's interesting around crypto is that its adoption curve is somewhere in the sort of late 90s if you were to compare it to the internet. And I think we're actually going to accelerate past that.
Or even mobile phones.
Exactly, mobile phones, smartphones. Yeah. I think what we'll see with cryptocurrency is an adoption curve that blows all of them away. And so when you start to think about what's coming and you think about corporations adding it to their balance sheet, you think about family offices, for example, I think it's about 1% of most family offices own about 1% of their wealth in cryptocurrencies at the moment. Think about that demand that's coming in this space. And you start to layer that on. Even if it's just, Fortune 500 companies, if it's, major companies on listed stock exchanges, let alone all the private money that's around, that builds up an incredible amount of demand. And we know there's a limited supply. So long term, numbers are always hard to predict. We always know that. But ultimately, the adoption side of things is such a key part of this. And we're already seeing this happen right now. And as I say, people just need to listen to that little voice in the back of their head that says, this must be something.
I've met some big London fund managers, private dinners, that kind of thing. And I've asked them about crypto. And they more or less all say the same thing. Either we've only just begun to get involved, or we're not involved yet, but our investors are all asking us why we're not involved yet, which convinces me that a lot more people are going to get involved. It's a big prediction, Sam. It's a big call, but something is happening, isn't it?
It is. There's a groundswell beneath the crypto system because people are now starting to really cotton on to the fact that there's a lot of potential, a lot of benefit in having an alternative system that they can be a part of and have access to. And it's not just about the UK or the US. When you start to think about all the pockets, some of the really big pockets of populations around the world, all of a sudden they've got access to a whole financial system that in the traditional financial system they never had access to. And they might not be talking, we're not talking about millions of dollars with them, but the sheer volume of people, even with small amounts of money, adds up very quick.
So this is the central bank digital currencies program, which we're told about 100 countries around the world are looking at. If you go to the internet, people are screaming blue murder, saying, they're going to control every aspect of our lives with their own digital money. Should we be fearful of that?
I don't think fear is the right way to approach it. I think what people should think about is that it's going to impact their life, whether they like it or not. If a central bank digital currency is rolled out, and from what I'm seeing is it looks like that is going to be the outcome, then it is the central bank controlling all forms and flows of money. And they're even cutting out the retail banks really in this sense. So whether it's going to pay for your petrol at the pump, whether it's paying your electricity bill, whether it's paying for your kids' school fees, whatever it might be, you are going to effectively be using a central bank digital currency, in my view. And if you're doing that, then they know everything about your financial history.
Is that a cashless society?
Yes, it is. And so the government, I believe, is coming at this from an angle, two kind of angles. It's about power and control over the financial system. And we've seen this play out recently with other geopolitical events, which we'll dig into shortly. but it's also about them eliminating the black economy, collecting taxes easier. It's about them being a more efficient government in having control over the money. And
when I hear words like government and efficient, it sends a bit of a shiver down my spine, I have to say. But in a way, the pandemic has hastened all of this, hasn't it? I mean, the number of shops that won't take cash anymore. And I mean, let's face it, here we are in London. If you've got an Oyster card, you know, they can tell every tube station you get on and get off at. So we have been moving in that direction quite rapidly anyway. Where does this leave the banks then?
It's a good question. The banks face a bit of a dilemma in terms of they're already under great pressure with their margins around, you know, if retail banks provide, what do they provide? What services do they provide to the average person? Okay, they provide mortgages and they provide deposit accounts. You look at your deposit account, you're earning about 0.3% per year interest on your savings. So they're not really facilitating much in that sense as well. I think retail banks are in big trouble, to be honest with you. If the central bank is going to control digital currencies and the money around the country, I think the retail banks are going to struggle, and they're going to have to figure out new ways that they can deliver services to people. It's going to be tough for them to be relevant.
And let's fast forward, 5-7 years, something like that, which is a realistic time frame if these central bank digital currencies are going to be put in place. In some ways, that, of course, makes crypto more attractive because it sort of gets you outside complete state control. But equally, it does lead to governments and financial institutions saying, look, crypto is the Wild West. It's where all the black economies move to. It's where the criminal activity happens. Surely, Sam, we have to face up to the fact that, and I know you've been a big enthusiast of this for over a decade, but at some point, don't we need some reasonable regulation?
Yes, I think we do. So it depends on how you want to look at it. Look, in the crypto space right now, there's not the traditional forms of regulation and oversight you'd get in the banking system. So, when you're in the crypto markets, you don't get access to things like the Financial Ombudsman or the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. But there are different kinds of oversight. There are market bodies that provide recourse to people that might have funds lost. When we're talking about cryptocurrency, it's actually a completely transparent way to track and move money about. So people always focus on scammers and people focus on theft and a lot of the bad things that can happen in crypto, which, by the way, equally happen, if not worse, in the traditional money system. But really, when we're thinking about crypto and what it can deliver, it's this idea of taking money outside of the control of a very centralized group of people that want full control over how and what you do with your money, and putting it into the hands of a free market, into the hands of the individual and the people. That's a power shift that we've never really seen before, because we're talking about money. We're talking about old money changing to new money. So we're talking new money, new rules. And if you're the centralized authority that's always had control of that, and now you're starting to lose control of that, that puts the fear of God into you.
And all of this done via something called blockchain, which some of our viewers will be familiar with. But what's to say that governments can't crack in to blockchain?
Without getting too technical, when we're talking about, we've talked here about a parallel system, right?
Yep.
About money existing in a decentralized, free way, and then the controlled government, central bank, digital currencies. They can both exist on blockchain technology, but I want to make a very clear distinction is that the crypto economy, the new money that we're talking about, will exist on blockchains, and the government one will exist on a blockchain. So that's a public access, open source blockchain, and a very controlled private one. So that means they have full control over their blockchain, and they can do whatever they want with it. And they will probably do whatever they want with it. But because of the decentralized nature of the public access new money that we're talking about, they can't just jump in and hack it or control it, because there's so many points around the world, because of its decentralized nature, they can't attack all of it at once and try and bring that under their control. It's too open. It's too open source for them.
So you believe the security of the blockchains, and whether we're talking about Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever it is, these things you believe are bomb-proof?
Absolutely, absolutely. When we talk about Bitcoin, that's a perfect example, is they cannot come in and take control of the Bitcoin network. They would basically have to shut down the internet And if they're shutting down the internet, we've got a lot bigger problems.
No, I think that's right. I mean, I've concluded that the only way they can stop people buying and selling, trading in digital currencies is if they literally take over the internet. And in a free society, that would not be acceptable.
I can't imagine a government sticking around too long if they decide to shut down the internet.
Scams. We talked about scams, and scams are going on every single day, as you say, in the existing system, let alone in the crypto world. People who want to transfer some of their money into crypto, what's their best approach? Bearing in mind that not everyone's going to have your level of computer tech skills.
Absolutely. As we're talking about two systems here, I also want to make it clear that we're not saying that the crypto system that we're talking about is something that people should just shift all their wealth into at this point in time. It's because there's a lot of, like you say, there's risks, there's scams, there's a lot of things to be wary of. And people...
And it's very volatile.
And it is volatile, right? When we look at
what have
prices.
we done this year? We've fallen 50%. We're going back up again.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is big swings in the fiat money converted price. So, when you look at Bitcoin priced in pounds, it is volatile in US dollars, whatever the currency might be. So what we're saying is that long term, I think we'll end up finding some stability in price. A bigger picture, very longer down the term, is we're talking about an entire circular economy based around cryptocurrencies. But ultimately, if people are looking at this, and there's that little voice in the back of their brain that, they see this in the mainstream media, they hear about it, just talking with their mates down at the pub, even their kids might be just, talking to them about it. That little voice that says, maybe you should be looking at this a little bit more seriously. That's what we're trying to help people understand, is you should be listening to that voice. It's not about going all in. It's about using some of your risk capital to take a step into this market and find out what it's about. Find out how it works. And so you don't have to throw heaps of money at it. If 100 quid is all you've got to really test the waters with it, that's fine. Doing it and just taking that first step is really probably the most important thing that somebody can do. I think it's probably the smartest decision that people will make with their finances this year, or possibly ever, is to just get started. And so we're going to provide people with a number of ways to help them to understand how easy it can actually be to do that.
And we'll recommend ways in which to buy and sell securely outside the scammers.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got to be able to understand how to spot those scammers. And look, as you said, I've been in this market for over a decade. I have seen everything.
Including from that time, percentage growth, thousands of percent.
Yeah, look,
tens of thousands of percent.
Over the decades, I have seen tens of thousands of percent. I've done pretty well out of it myself. But those quick, fast buck money making, that is there. And we're not going to hide the fact that you over time you can make huge returns from cryptocurrency. That's not what we're talking about today. We want people to understand that there is a fork in the road coming. Right? We're talking about a continued system of control over your money and how you use it and where you use it. And we're talking about another alternative option where people have a much freer world to live in, that they can use cryptocurrency to really balance out their financial existence and just have a bit of a hedge against the current system continuing to do what it currently does. And so again, it's not just about all these big fast gains. It's about understanding fundamentally. We're talking about new money, new rules, and that people, I think, really should have a smart exposure to that.
It's really interesting. I go back and forth to America a hell of a lot, and I've got a lot of, I work for American companies for 20 years, and it really is fascinating to see the extent to which Bitcoin, Ethereum, many other coins, not just as a means of investment, but as a means of exchange, it's exploding in America, isn't it? Just explain a little bit to our people how commonplace now the use of crypto is.
Yeah, look, the adoption curve on the use, and as I say, the how cryptocurrency is bought, traded, sold, used is phenomenal. So in the US alone, we're talking about globally, we're talking about 300 million people plus something like 18,000 businesses worldwide are all now starting to use cryptocurrency in some shape or form. You mentioned Tesla earlier. They hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet. The adoption side of things, and in the US, it is certainly a really fast-moving, fast-growing. You've been to Miami, so you know what's happening there. Yeah. In Texas this year, a couple of the candidates for the governor role in Texas, very pro-Bitcoin, want to make Texas the Bitcoin state and even legal tender. Arizona's, I think moving in a similar direction as
Yeah.
well. So it's kind of like game theory. A lot of people talk about game theory at the moment. We're seeing that play out with governments that look to adopt it. And if you think about Texas, I think Texas, if Texas was a country, it'd be about the 9th biggest country in the world in terms of GDP. So we're not talking tiny little, offshoots in, backwater or anything like that. We're talking massive economies that are looking to onboard this for all their people. And we're seeing countries adopt it. As we said before, the government
El Salvador
here,
was the first.
El Salvador
wasn't it?
was the first.
Yeah.
There's a city, Lugano, again, it's small in Switzerland, but you can pay your taxes in crypto. People don't understand how fast this is moving in terms of the adoption. And when you start to look at everything that's happening around the world, like I said before, that little voice in your brain goes, oh, actually, maybe this is something I need to take more attention to.
Yeah, well, I tell you, I mean, all my life, I've watched this. When things start to happen in America, it is only a matter of time before it happens here. And just as we were seeing crypto being adopted and used by some of the biggest firms in the USA, at the same time, the Bank of England was saying no intrinsic value, could be worthless, but as Sam has said already, it's not what they say, it's what they do. And if London really is going to become a big tech hub for crypto, well, you heard it here first. Sam, one other thought, and I know this gets very, very complex. Decentralized finance, DeFi as it's known. There are ways, aren't there, that you can use crypto to actually earn income?
Yeah, there are, and it's actually a lot easier than people think. There are levels of risk involved with that, but when you think about, again, we talked about parallel systems, right? And you look at the current system, like anybody watching today can go and have a look at their, online banking account and check out the interest rate that you're earning. It's 0 point something. It's nothing. And that's because we're talking about a market that is very much controlled by the central bank, fiscal and monetary policy from the government and the central bank. When you go to the crypto markets and you look at the crypto world and how that's developing, and we look at decentralized finance, it's not too dissimilar in theory. So you have almost bank-like structures in crypto that allow for deposits. They borrow and lend money out to people.
Yep.
So you have these principles of finance that exist in both. But what the crypto system does is, as I said before, it's a very free market. So you don't have those restrictions and controls of that traditional system. You've got a free market where the providers set the rate. So they can lend out money, and people will do that at quite high interest rates, and that pays the money to the depositors. So there are ways that you can earn 9 to 12% on a stable coin in the decentralized finance world.
I think this is an area that we will go into more deeply in time, maybe a bit much, but I just thought it was worth touching on.
Yeah.
This idea that you can actually earn income, from this sector.
People don't know that it exists, and it's the age-old saying: you don't know what you don't know. And that's what we're trying to help people to understand: is there's this whole world available to them where they can, earn incredible double-digit interest rates on deposits, and it's not crazy. And again, people are like, oh, it's too risky, and I don't want to get involved. Yeah. It's fair to compare these kinds of decentralized finance ways that we're talking about here. It's fair to compare them with the current world. They're not the same by any stretch of the imagination. There are different risks, but they're not that dissimilar. But it's because we're talking about a free market. Again, once we help people to understand and open their eyes to what is possible, again, I think we'll start to see more and more people.
Well, that's what we're here to do. I mean, that is what we're here to do. As you say, there's nobody out there that hasn't heard about cryptocurrencies. There's a range of opinions, and even the central bank digital concept, I think, is now getting quite widespread debate, particularly across social media, but even across mainstream media too. You're coming on board with UK Independent Wealth, which is a project that I got involved with. We've been going for about 18 months, and we've been looking, at commodities. We've been looking at stock markets and helping people to build long-term portfolios, not short-term punting. And what we're talking about here is not a short-term punt. If you want to sell the house and put it into crypto, well, you may as well go and just put it on red or black at the casino tonight. We know that it's volatile, but we know as an investment, it's still got the potential to bring great returns and possibly income too. But if people come on board with us through UK Independent Wealth, what can they expect from you?
I want to help people to really understand what's happening in this space. Like we said before, that you will hear stories about huge, crazy gains that you can be made in the crypto world. That's not what we're going to be focusing on. We're going to be focusing on helping people to take that first step and understand what the hell is actually going on. Why does this system exist, and how can they take those first steps into it? It's not really about the short term, like you say. It's about understanding how our world is going to look with new money and new rules and a competing alternative system. There are good things about the traditional financial system. Like, don't get me wrong, it's done some pretty nice things for the world.
Yeah, I mean, London does look pretty cool, doesn't it?
But ultimately, it's become very centralized, very controlled, and it doesn't work for everyone. The cryptocurrency system, I believe long term, we're talking about a system that has great growth potential, has a lot of ways in which people can really, build long-term wealth within it, but just taking those first steps, understanding what it's about, how to avoid the scammers and how to avoid, losing money, and identifying the risks that are involved. They're the things that we're going to bring, that I'm going to bring to help people understand so that they can take that first step without, really having to be scared about it. And I think people get too scared about change. But this is change for the good and change to be excited about. And we're going to help take people on that journey.
Now, some very big world events obviously going on. One of them doesn't appear that big and yet maybe has big implications for this debate. The Canadian truckers. The Canadian truckers, they'd had enough. They said, we're in our cab 12 hours a day. Why do we need to have jab after jab? They descended upon the capital. They blocked it. In the end, what did for them was their bank accounts being foreclosed.
This is an astonishing story. And a lot of people will have seen the headlines and looked at it and really just been bemused at what has gone over there. We're talking about peaceful protesters that basically just didn't agree with the government and what the government was saying. So they decided to run a protest. And so what did the government do? Basically shut them out of the financial system like that. Like a flick of a switch, froze their bank accounts, and even related people that weren't even necessarily protesting. They put full control, they weaponized their own financial system against their own citizens. I mean, this is astonishing. But the underlying sort of story behind this is that then they started to look to cryptocurrencies as ways to actually exist outside of that system. Not trying to do anything illegal, just trying to function and even just, pay for groceries, because they couldn't do that because they'd been shut off by their own government. And so when you look at the potential of what that brings in terms of, as we've said, before, about a free financial system, a freedom financial system, really, for people to operate outside of the restrictions and controls put on them. It's a very powerful story, really, that a lot of people, I think, missed about that whole situation.
We're living in inflationary times. It's the first time really in 40 years that inflation has started to bite. In the Netherlands, it's up to 12%. In Britain and America, 6, 7, 8%. 28% of all dollars in circulation have been created since the start of the pandemic. It's a truly mind-blowing figure. And I think there are many of us that think inflation is going to be longer, more persistent, and more severe than anyone dares predict. Interestingly, the Bank of England told us all the way through there wasn't going to be any inflation. Then they said there would be inflation, but it would merely be transitory. And now we're being told in the last half of 2022, inflation will disappear. I don't believe any of that. They've been wrong from the start. What are the implications of government creating vast amounts of new money and inflation for cryptocurrencies?
You're right. The government is just continuing to add money to the system. Inflation is running out of control. I remember when the pandemic first kicked off and we all went into lockdowns around March 2020. And I wrote at the time that we were going to see huge inflation, that double-digit inflation was on its way. And they started, like you said, talking about transitory inflation. It wasn't going to go. Utter nonsense. Not fit for purpose, those people that said in the central bank that it wasn't coming. If you couldn't see that coming, you got rocks in your head. And ultimately what cryptocurrency does, when you're looking at an inflationary world where the cost of living is soaring, I'm sure you've got energy bills like I do. Mine have almost tripled in the last few months. People going to the petrol pump have seen the costs skyrocket. Even just the weekly grocery shop is up like 20, 30%. So where this plays out for cryptocurrency is, again, we come back to this idea of two parallel systems, an alternative system and the controlled system that is run by the central bank. And in the traditional system, they're not doing anything about this. So inflation's skyrocketing, and what they really need to do is they need to lift rates. You probably remember a world.
But they can't do that because they borrowed so much money.
Exactly. They borrowed so much money. And if they did that, and they did it fast and hard, they're going to blow up the stock market, probably going to blow up property prices. So they're going to blow up everything that they've built the last couple of decades worth of wealth on. So they can't do that. In the crypto system, we're already starting to see adjustments because, again, it's a free market. So we can see that rates are up. You can see deposit rates are up 12, 13, 14%, sometimes even higher in some situations. So that free market allows for those adjustments to be made, as opposed to a centralized system, which is literally doing absolutely nothing about the cost of living and inflation.
Russia, Ukraine, the dominant story, one of the biggest stories in Europe for 75 years. Obviously, sanctions being put on Russia, selective sanctions, because the Germans want to keep buying gas and oil, but we have put sanctions on wealthy Russian individuals. The crypto exchanges have not put those sanctions on. Is there a danger that through this, that crypto is seen perhaps as being the back door for breaking rules, for bad guys, basically?
That's what they'll have you believe. But, I mean, I've never been in this situation. I'm sure you probably haven't either, where bombs are literally falling on your head and you're trying to flee a country where you didn't decide to go to war. You're an innocent person that just wanted to go about their business, and all of a sudden, for example, if you're an innocent Russian and your entire financial system has just been closed off from the rest of the world, and you are basically looking at your wealth being decimated, and you want to get out of that, what do? Previously, you never had an alternative. Cryptocurrency provides them with that alternative. Likewise, if you're a Ukrainian that's trying to get the hell out because there's literally a missile about to land on your doorstep, you want to get the hell out of the country, but you're going to face a roadblock of Russian soldiers to do that. You're not going to be carrying gold bars or wads of cash in your pocket if you want to take that wealth with you. But what you can do is you can put that on a USB stick, or you can even memorize the seed phrase to a wallet that has Bitcoin on it. And we've seen stories of people that have got out of the Ukraine and taken their wealth in Bitcoin. It's a liberation tool. While the traditional financial system is being weaponized against people, innocent people, we talk about it with the Canadian truckers as well.
Yeah.
The cryptocurrency system is that liberation from that control. It provides people with an alternative to get out of it. So you don't hear the stories about that in the mainstream. You just hear, the oligarchs are going to use it to shift their wealth out of Russia. It's like, no.
But it's being used legitimately by people who are terrified about what will happen, not just to their own safety, but to their financial assets as well.
It provides these people with some kind of hope that they have a future because they can take some of their wealth from that system into the alternative cryptocurrency.
That's a very, very powerful point. Sam, my mission here, with all that I've done over the last 18 months, is to help people take control of their own lives, take control of their own financial destiny. And what I've learned, actually, is that kind of the establishment keep the knowledge to themselves. It's as if you're a little peasant, you don't understand this, we'll do it on your behalf and charge you an awful lot of money. And that's been the whole project, to help people educate themselves. It's an empowerment tool. I mean, it genuinely is. So to sum up for me what we're trying to do here.
You've hit the nail on the head. Education is a key part of it. Look, I also don't want people to be mistaken about the risks that are involved in the cryptocurrency markets. There are absolutely risks in getting involved in the cryptocurrency market, as there is any stock market or investment market around the world. So it's important that is very clear to people, that this isn't something to just go all into. It is an education piece and helping people to understand the right way to do that. And I think that the best way to do that is basically to follow 4 key steps in doing so. The first is to make cryptocurrency a part of your long-term plans. The second is to really understand and avoid the key mistakes that most people take and make when getting into this market. The third is to just learn a bit more about DeFi and how that works, and again, the risks that are involved in all of that. And then the fourth is to understand what exists beyond Bitcoin. What are the other cryptocurrencies out there? What role do they play? What fundamentally are they about? And how that all fits into the bigger picture. So, like you say, understanding and education and providing people with the correct information is absolutely critical in this situation.
Yeah, we're not promising you a quick buck. This is not a gamble. This is not a short-term trade. What we're talking about here is a complete change in the way that hundreds of millions and ultimately billions of people will be conducting their lives and their businesses in the years to come. It's about education, but you know, it's a funny thing. The better your education, the more likely you are to make money too. 5 years ago, cryptocurrencies were pure speculation. Yet now, making crypto part of your plans just makes sense, doesn't it? I have. A short while ago, I took a small amount of my money, I opened an account, I invested in cryptocurrency. It wasn't difficult, but I'm glad I did it, and I'm not alone. As I said at the start of this broadcast, more than 300 million people and 18,000 businesses worldwide have adopted crypto. Major companies like Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, and Goldman Sachs are adopting it in one way or another. This is the biggest shift to money and financial markets in our lifetimes. And that's why Sam believes now is the time to understand everything you can about cryptocurrencies. And that's why I'm here to extend a very important invitation. As you may well know, in 2020, I took on a new mission outside of politics to help people take control of their finances, to become better, smarter investors. To do this, I launched a monthly newsletter called UK Independent Wealth. It's been a big success. More than 6,000 people up and down the country read our work. Our goal is to share the very best ideas and opportunities from the financial markets directly with people like you. Because I believe that with the right information and insights, you are the best person to take charge of your money, to help you regain control over your financial destiny. Which is why I've asked Sam to become part of the team and explain the rise of cryptocurrencies to my readers every month, to hold your hand through this journey. And today, I'm inviting you to try out UK Independent Wealth for yourself. Sam's goal is to help you understand what the rise of the crypto world means to you and to help you explore the new opportunities it is creating. That makes right now a great time to join us and give UK Independent Wealth a go. When you do, you'll get a whole series of special reports. The Crypto Investor's Bible, your essential guide to understanding the world of cryptocurrencies. The 3 biggest crypto mistakes to avoid, helping you sidestep some of the most common mistakes that people make. Digital Income, your personal guide to the world of decentralized finance, including 3 ways you can earn between 9 and 12% on your money. Plus, you'll get the most important cryptos in the world today, Sam's exclusive guide to the best emerging cryptocurrencies. These are the cryptos that Sam thinks will be critical to the new financial system in the coming years, and you'll get the names of all of them. You'll also get a free digital copy of Sam's book, Crypto Revolution. Tens of thousands of people have already read Sam's book. You'll get your digital copy free of charge. You'll also get a copy of a guide to NFTs, what they are, what they're about, and why they are so important. You may have heard about NFTs before. They're one of the hottest trends in the crypto world today. But what are they? What do they do? And why are so many people getting excited? This report explains it all. You'll also get another report called Eyes Wide Open, The Risks of Crypto. This report does exactly what it says on the tin. It explains the risks involved with crypto investing in simple, plain language. Frankly, neither Sam or I would be doing our jobs properly if we didn't share this with you. Cryptos are high risk. Know that going in. Have your eyes open. Sam has made a compelling argument as to why he thinks that those risks are worth it. But only you can decide if these risks are right for you. This report will help you make that decision. You get all that and more when you become a UK Independent Wealth subscriber. But that's just the start. You'll also get our flagship newsletter every month, packed full of wealth-building advice on the financial markets, including cryptocurrencies, stocks, gold, and property. Plus, you'll hear from Sam every month, keeping you up to date with the most important stories in the crypto world. And the last thing you need to worry about is the price. UK Independent Wealth is easily affordable for any investor or saver. 1 year subscription costs just £199, but you can get your first year for just £79, and that fee is fully refundable for the next 3 months. So, if at any point, any time, you're not happy, you can cancel and get every penny of your subscription refunded. The best way to take advantage of this offer is simply to click the link and you'll be taken to a secure order form. That's the way to get started. Sam, to summarize, why should people join us here at UK Independent Wealth?
There's one key point I want to really address, so the elephant in the room, is that people are inherently skeptical about all of this. And look, I completely understand that. When I first found Bitcoin, I was bloody skeptical too. I thought, this can't be right, this can't be real. And then over the last, what are we now, 13 years, this has evolved into one of the most significant developments, I think, in human history. So it's fair that everyone is skeptical, and lots of very, well-known investors and have been skeptical about cryptocurrency over the road. But they're changing their tune. They're starting to realize this isn't a fad. This isn't going away. And people that once called it rat poison and a scam, Warren Buffett, famously called it rat poison once. Well, he just invested about $1 billion into a crypto company. People change their tune. And again, it's that little voice in the back of your head that says, don't do it, don't do it. And then there's that one that says, actually, maybe you should be taking this more seriously. That's the one we want people to listen to, is that this isn't a fad. This isn't a scam. There's real adoption happening in the world, which we've covered. I'll give you a perfect example. So my brother works for one of Australia's biggest banks, ANZ, $80 billion bank, huge bank. Just recently, they minted an Australian dollar stablecoin on the Ethereum network. So my brother was a key part in helping that take place and part of the team that put that onto the table. So we're talking about a massive global bank minting a stablecoin on the Ethereum blockchain. I mean, when we talk about adoption, these are the things that are happening right now. This isn't, I'm not making this stuff up. This isn't some fantasy fairy tale in the future. This is what's happening. So people need to really just understand that voice that says, you need to be taking this more seriously. You need to be taking those first steps. Listen to that voice and take those first steps.
It's happening. Like it or not, it is happening. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And you need to arm yourself with the right information. We promise we'll do our best at UK Independent Wealth, and Sam will give regular updates on the crypto scene, what's going on, legislative changes, keep you up to speed on central bank digital currencies. You will, I promise you, be well informed. So come and join us. Be part of this journey. This is the future. Be in no doubt. If you want to get involved with this, please, it's simple. Click the link.